All right, everyone. We start off today talking about Kamala Harris and her relatability crisis. Of course, she does have one. When you go into a grocery store and you're telling, like, the legacy media, the captive press, the Biden press, so to speak, well, here are some of my favorite foods. Can't you just go shopping like a normal person? It's like when Kamala Harris tried to buy Doritos some time ago and she failed at this endeavor. It was really, really funny. Link in the description, archived of course. Kamala Harris continuing to try to be relatable. The problem is that she has a problem with doing so. And that's because she's very mechanical, very legalistic in mind. And so she's like sort of a clearly minted politician. She's a good politician. You couldn't get better. Basically, she fits the mold perfectly. But as far as being a person, as far as actually being able to relate with other people, then it becomes a problem. And I think I know why. Kamala Harris is basically just a facade. Think of her as being nothing more than a brand, so to speak. She's not really, she is a person, but she's not really personable, if that makes sense. She's just a politician. She's a brand. And so it's basically, hey, I'm opposing Orange Man, and it's all good after that. She's continuing to attempt it. She hasn't succeeded so far. I'm waiting for the debate tomorrow, when hopefully, this is my hope, it's not necessarily an expectation, anything can and does happen. My hope is that Donald Trump draws her out of her shell and shows her full personality to the American public. Because I don't think that it'll go over so well. The fact is that Kamala Harris is a cutthroat. She just pretends not to be. She's pretending to be like the opposite of Donald Trump when actually she has some of his same methodologies. Donald Trump will let you know, I'm rich, I'm powerful, fuck you. He's very, very forthcoming. Now, is this off-putting sometimes? Maybe. Is he being honest about it? Yeah. Is Kamala Harris honest about the fact that she's a rich bitch from the upper middle class who prosecuted a bunch of people for minor drug offenses, etc., etc.? No, she's not. She's pretending, it's like with Bernie Sanders, I'll be talking about that separately. With Bernie Sanders saying, well, she hasn't left behind her beliefs, her ideals. Well, what are those ideals? You mean jailing pot smokers, or do you mean corporate tax breaks? Because that's basically who she is. She's a neoliberal. One thing I will say is that while she is a bit of a commie, and she definitely is flirting with the far left, mostly she's a neoliberal. This also doesn't make her personable. She's a bit like the female version of Al Gore, if that makes sense. Boring, very droll, often doesn't connect with people. This was the problem, like back in 2004 election, for example. George W. is a warmonger. Also, he's refusing to endorse anyone, which is actually a good thing. Warmonger, hundreds of thousands of people dead, all sorts of problems economically, up and down, all sorts of weird corruptions in his administration. He's got Dick Cheney as VP, etc., etc. But when he gets on the stage next to John Kerry, he seemed personable. The fact that his ideals fucking sucked didn't in the end actually matter. I hate to tell you this, but a lot of people vote based on personality. John Kerry, of course, was very boring, very dry, seemed too political at times. George W.'s like, strategery, 9/11. I mean, the 9/11 thing worked well at the time as well. And basically, Kamala Harris is a little bit like a John Kerry. She's just a boring persona. And when she breaks through the boringness, it's usually at the exact wrong moment now, isn't it? Like, she'll be confronted with, hey, the administration just splattered 50 kids in a Yemeni orphanage. What do you have to say about that? That's the problem. The problem is that the only time that she actually has a personality is when it's terrible. When it breaks through, it's at exactly the wrong moment. Otherwise, she's basically just completely boring and vacuous and doesn't know what the hell she's saying half the time. It's becoming a real problem, I think, for the Kamala campaign. They can say, well, Donald Trump is flailing, Donald Trump has legal problems, Donald Trump the felon, and so forth, and these are all liberal talking points. In the end, though, no, it's the Kamala Harris campaign that has problems. Its problem is a lack of personality by the candidate that only shines through in the most inappropriate of moments. Only then does she have a personality at all. Otherwise, it's basically like she's just a deer in the headlights. It's a real big problem. So she's trying to be relatable. She's like, here are my favorite foods. Who cares? Who gives a goddamn shit about your favorite foods? I want to hear about what your tax plan is going to be. Who gives a shit about what flavor of ice cream you like? I'd like to hear about your thoughts on the border because you haven't really decided yet. That's what I would want to hear. Now, I'm a more high-info voter than many people. Again, optics will play a role. But even the optics are poor. So for the low-info voters out there, they're going to see probably tomorrow on the debate stage a Kamala Harris who is simultaneously boring and psychopathic. And Trump, if he is wise, he will attempt to antagonize her into those situations, but generally speaking, he'll be just presidential. That would be my advice to him. Just debate her on the actual issues. The American people do actually have enough intelligence to care about them. Most of them. I mean, some people are partisan, but, you can't help that. There are going to be people who vote for Kamala Harris simply because she's got a D after her name. Just like there are people who vote for Trump just because he's got an R after his name. I mean, it's no different. It's the same thing. Kamala Harris attempting to be relatable is hilarious. It's sort of like if Dick Cheney goes to the grocery store and he has like a photo op where he's buying milk or something like that. It'd basically be the same thing when you think about it now, isn't it? That's about all. Peace out.